The Ghost Recon franchise is getting another game coming, apparently in 2025. Maybe bring it ahead a year, do 2024, that would be pretty cool. I don't think I'd mind. But in this video, I just wanted to talk about the Ghost Recon franchise in general and what I'd like to see change and add in the new Ghost Recon game. Because the franchise itself has started out as one thing and shifted slowly to be another thing. So if you're going to enjoy this video, then let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are about everything I say, and if you have any ideas yourself about the next game or the previous games, do let me know. Also, if you enjoy watching Ghost Recon Breakpoint gameplay, I've got a whole playlist of like 400 plus videos on the game, so if you want to fill some time, then check out the playlist in the description. I do like the originals, but I do like the changes and additions that they made in the new ones. And I think the perfect middle ground would be somewhere in the middle of both, while also having all of the elements of the new ones and all of the elements of the old ones, if that's possible. So quickly looking back at the original games, what did I like about them? Well, they were realistic to what they could do. I mean, at the time, the graphics weren't as good as they can be now, but the realism and the immersion that you'd feel with that linear kind of storytelling was very, very good. I'm pretty sure it paved a way for new games to come along and follow a route like that. Maybe they weren't the first, but they definitely did it very, very well. Also, the enemy eye was actually quite good. It was intelligent. And it was challenging, and that was one of the things that made it really quite impressive. It wasn't the simple case of being able to just rush through missions. Obviously, you could lower the difficulty and it just pow, 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 but there was a challenge there, and that's something I really liked. But also, because you had the linear storytelling design as opposed to the open world design of nowadays Ghost Recon games, you had those sort of initial different mission types. So you had stealth missions, like reconnaissance missions, assault missions. Like every time you did a mission, it would feel like it was something different. You know, you were being part of the Ghost Recon team, doing the different things you have to do to get to your final objective. And to me, that kept the game quite fresh, and that variety is obviously carried on through to the new games. I think they also did a really good job of depicting, I guess, the reality, the harsh reality of what war could be like in like Future Soldier, but like just in general war itself. It was quite gritty. They were like realistic. They had that pow factor. I don't know how else to describe it, but it felt very raw. It's the only way I can really put it. Not to say that the newer ones haven't felt like that, but somehow, somewhere along the way in translation, I think some of that grittiness was lost by creating an open world. You almost create a divide between the realism and the almost stress, I guess, that you might feel in certain situations when you open the world up, because obviously you can spend a lot of time just roaming around, and I guess that makes you kind of forget you're in a war zone, if that makes any sense. All in all, the originals were great. They were incredible starting blocks for the Ghost Recon franchise, and I think that the fact that they've moved to open world nowadays is something that is very, very good, but I think they need to tone it slightly back and bring back a lot of the elements that made the original Ghost Recon games incredible. So just discussing Wildlands and Breakpoint for a second, the open worlds are amazing. They're really, really fun to go through. The only issue is with them, and I played Ghost Recon Breakpoint a lot, I played Wildlands a lot, but the issue is you spend enough time in the world, you start to realize that there's not enough going on. The map is huge, it's very impressive, but it almost gets to a point where, is it too big? Because they obviously couldn't fill it with enough stuff, especially now that they're not working on the game anymore. The only recurring things that really happen are the random enemies that come past maybe in cars, sometimes two cars at once if you're lucky, and then you've got the patrols, then you've got the wolf patrols with the armored assault drones, things like that. But they're relatively easy to take on, unless you've got the game in the most extreme setting and you're playing with the Spartan mod, then anything can happen. But majority of the time, just roaming around the world, if you're not doing the missions that are actually made in the game, then you're left kind of just exploring and killing the occasional enemy every now and again, which it's good, but I feel like that's where one of the improvements could be made. You're not in a mission, you're not doing anything you have to be doing, but watch out, because it's not going to be easy. I also love the emphasis on the stealth and tactical gameplay. Like I guess they've never lost the stealth and tactical element, which I like. There are different ways you can do missions. You can just go in all guns blazing, but if you're smart enough, I say that, I don't want to insult anybody, but you know, if you're patient enough is probably the better way to say it, then you can go in and take everybody down and not be seen. And it's beautiful when you do it. It's very annoying when you try and do it and you fail. I like that. I like that. It adds an extra challenge that you can put on yourself personally. Obviously, a lot of games have that now, but still. They also added a load more gadgets, equipment, things like that. So you've got drones, you've got your silenced weapons, all sorts of silenced weapons, silenced shotguns if you want to feel fancy, your silenced deagle if you want to go down that route. Night vision, you've got the heat vision, all sorts. You've also got the customization options that Breakpoint and Wildlands added. Breakpoint went a different route and started doing gear levels and things like that. Now, I'm not saying that that's not the way to go, but I am going to say I don't think that's what the focus should be. And it was proven with Breakpoint, it should be in the game if people want to use it, but you can turn that off if you don't like it. I think it takes away from that realism aspect. You take down some enemies and all of a sudden they're all dropping a pink thing or a purple thing or a gold thing or a purple, I've said purple already, that's awkward, a blue thing, you know what I mean? Like, no, I don't want to be picking up weapons that aren't good enough to kill enemies. Like, at the end of the day, that takes away the realism. And this is why the issue with Far Cry came in for me, where Far Cry 5 was amazing. Then Far Cry 6, it had the gear level stuff, and certain weapons couldn't take down certain enemies because they weren't a high level enough. It takes away from the realism. Games are games, and not every game is trying to be realistic. I fully understand that. But Far Cry, while it's always been quite jokey, has been relatively realistic. And there's something satisfying about if you get the headshot, you get the headshot. That's cool. But then the gear levels, I think they just take away from that. So maybe have them in the game still, but don't force it. I feel like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, the reception of it probably would have been better if at launch they had the option to have the gear level on or have the realism mode that they added a bit later on. But customization as a whole, great, fantastic. Don't change it, well, just add stuff to it, I would say. And then the other thing I liked at first, but I wasn't too sure, and after a while, was the raids in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I know a lot of people did enjoy them, but I also know that a lot of people were annoyed that certain weapons were literally locked behind these raids that you had to do unless you weren't going to get the gun, or you weren't going to get that apparel or customization item. And that was semi-frustrating because, well, maybe I don't have a team that wants to do a Titan raids with me, or maybe I just don't want to do them. Don't lock stuff behind stuff that is going to be niche to some players. You know, some players aren't going to want to do it, but they want the stuff out of it. Well, you might say, well, yeah, but it's a way for certain people that want to put that time and effort in to do those Titan raids and get those weapons. It's like a show-off thing, maybe, but in a single-player game, it doesn't really make sense. In a multiplayer game, fine. Everyone can see what you've achieved, but in a single-player game, well, what's the point? I know it was an open world, I know it was co-op and stuff, but I just think maybe don't lock certain things behind raids. But again, the variety of content on release and that they did for, I think, about a year after release, maybe a little bit longer, that was really good. But yeah, there's a few things that I like about Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and there's a few things that I liked about the originals. Now I want to talk about what I want to see in general from the next Ghost Recon game, and some of the things I've already slightly touched on, but I want to go into everything with a bit more detail. So first thing, I want to see that gritty and realistic and raw experience return. I'm not sure how they're going to do that in the open world. Some suggestions would be more intensity. There's not enough going on. Like I said, the open world in Breakpoint and Wildlands was so big that you feel like you're traveling around for so long, and then you'll come across one or two enemies and then there's nothing. You could have it so that you're traveling around, you come across one or two enemies. The second they spot you, they call it in, and all of a sudden you've got reinforcements coming in from left, right, and center. Not just one car, not just two cars, but loads of them. With realistic time, maybe, so that they send the call in. You can imagine at the base, everyone's like rushing around trying to grab all their weapons and get in the cars and come over to you. And then a whole random chase sequence occurs. Enemies can come after you in cars. Once they get out, they're not getting back in. You drive away, they're not getting back in. They're not following you. It's so easy to get away in these new ones. But if you just change certain things, and this is stuff I don't know how to develop games. I'm not going to pretend I do, but these are suggestions that I think are doable. It's that implementation, I guess, that it depends whether it can be done. But I think it can be done. But I also say go down that gritty route. The most sort of raw experience, I keep saying raw, but it's the best way I can describe it. But the most raw experience in Breakpoint is sort of when you go and melee take down someone and they've got those animations. That feels pretty brutal. I think we need a way to get that feeling of that grittiness out of just those animations and into the entirety of the game. It's like when you're being shot when you're being shot at and you're behind cover, maybe have all these kind of graphical elements that sort of make you, like, screen start shaking. Maybe your character's movement is somewhat depleted because he's being suppressed. I just feel like little ideas like that, they could really make for a more immersive immersive experience and that realistic simulation factor. Essentially, it needs to be a sort of military sim with all the customization, with the open world and all of that, because I've spent so long playing Ghost Recon Breakpoint. There's always something that I can feel like, okay, I can go back and try that. I can give that a go. That might be fun. And if they can nail it on their head, at least from launch, or at least from updates they do after launch, then it could be a world, if it's open, that people can keep dropping back into, changing their outfits and just having that sort of simulator role-play style experience every single time they play it. And I think that would take the game from being, okay, I'll play this for a bit, to, okay, this is something I might decide to play every now and again, or quite frequently. Now, mission types. This is something I want to see slightly change in the next Ghost Recon game, and just hear me out for a second. So in Breakpoint, there were already lots of different mission types. You had side missions, you had the archipelago, I can't say the word. You had your main missions, then you had your DLC missions, quite a few DLC missions, like Terminator ones, all that stuff. I think to make the original Ghost Recon people happy, you need to have some missions that feel quite linear, that feel like the original Ghost Recon missions. Some missions where, obviously, if it's going to be an open world, you're sort of more restrained. Not that you can't walk around and decide where you want to take the mission from. If you want to snipe, for example, you can go up to the top of a mountain, but just a more linear narrative. Not to say that Breakpoint wasn't, but it did feel a little bit all over the place and mismatched. Not in a bad way, because I did enjoy it, and I have enjoyed most things about Breakpoint. But I think you've got to have something that makes the original fans happy, because there's a lot of people, like I said at the beginning of this, that really enjoyed the originals, didn't quite so much enjoy the new ones. And sometimes some people just aren't happy with change, but I think I get that, because the game started out as one thing, and now it's this completely different thing. It's not all of them, but just some more linear missions in terms of when you're dealing with the story. But again, this game shouldn't be fully focused on the story, because along with that, talking about missions, I think you need more mission types, and you need more variety of mission types. There's certain missions in Ghost Recon Breakpoint where you have to go and hack a thing, right? You kill two people to get onto hacking it, you hack the thing, and boom, that's it, mission done. Well, what's that about? What's the point of that? Faction missions have a really cool premise, but annoyingly, Ubisoft decided to stop working on the game. But before they stopped working on the game, why didn't they just, I don't know, devise up 20 different mission types and then have them rotating around the different areas of the map permanently? That's the thing, you might say. Well, yes, but there's like 5 different mission types and every single one of them is the same every single day, so there's no real change. It just changes the location in which they do it. But also, it's in the same 4 sort of regions of the map every single time. So if you just jump on to play the faction missions every now and again to give yourself something to do, you're only going to be playing in the same spots every single time. It just seems a bit silly. They just need to add different diverse types of those missions. But I think you get me. I hope you get me. Also, side note, let's not tease a whole new island and then just give up on the game before you've released the island and then leave that island on the map. That just seems silly. When the game comes out, just have the map that you can play in, and then if you want to add more bits later, show that later. Don't show it at the beginning, because you set yourself up for failure and it's just a bit silly. Also, I'd like to see more customization options. There's nothing wrong really with the customization in Breakpoint and Wildlands. They were both pretty in-depth with what you could do to customize yourself. So I'd just say add more. It's a big thing for people, and I think there were certain things like you couldn't take off your gun belt and all this stuff. The tiny details, I think, are what matters, and is when people care about if it's content creation or just, like I said, role-playing for themselves or with their friends in co-op. It'd be nice if you could fully make your character look exactly how you'd like them to look. But I'd say that the deeper you can go in customization, the happier people are. At least that would work for me. Okay, next, this is an important one for me, is the AI. So I've played a lot of this game with the Spartan mod on, and it's a night and day difference to the original game. The original game is fun, but when you play it with that more extreme experience, you realize that the original base game isn't what it could have been. Even in extreme mode, I played a lot of just extreme, and I thought I was the absolute don because I could do everything. But it wasn't that hard. Once you realize the way the game works, and the way the enemies work, and the way the reinforcements work, and how easy they spot you, that kind of thing, you could kind of game the game. They need to revamp that AI to make it way more intense, and I kind of touched on it just before, as well as saying, like, when you're walking past and like a patrol sees you, they call in people, and there's a little bit of time, but they're coming for you, and you're gonna have to run. Maybe they put a tracker on you, so you've got to get out of a vicinity in a certain period of time, otherwise they're really gonna come down hard on you. The AI needs to be reworked slightly. They're a little bit goofy in this game, but I do like all the tactical changes that you can make. So like when you get hit, if you get hit enough, you've got to bandage up. That's really good. I really like that. Now next, this one comes as a sort of realization after playing the game in first person using the first person mod that was released for Breakpoint not too long ago. I've got a few videos on that if you want to see them. But we need more realistic weapons. They're very arcadey and it's very noticeable when you're playing in first person. Obviously the game was never designed to be in first person. The attachments, everything, it all just feels really arcadey, even down to the look of it. It's just a little bit goofy. No, I don't know, because Ubisoft obviously have a style, but also in their trailers they show off this really good, incredible looking game, but then the game doesn't actually look like that and all the graphics are just not as impressive. But overall, weapon customization should be improved a bit more. More ability, more freedom to change things that you wouldn't normally think to change just to make certain weapons your own. But overall, I think they just need to neaten up, tighten up, and just, I don't know how to describe it, but let me know what you think about that, because I think you might know where I'm coming from, but I don't know how you would make the weapons more realistic and less arcadey feeling. But if anyone else feels the same way, let me know in the comments. I would also argue, don't stress too much about a multiplayer mode. Have co-op in the main game, but don't stress so much about the multiplayer mode. I think it was called Ghost War in Breakpoint. I played it maybe once or twice and then never really touched it again. It just wasn't something that I was really looking at. I don't know if other people feel that way, but I can't imagine that it was as popular as Ubisoft wanted it to be, just because I feel like they would have kept working on the game for longer. I think Ghost Recon to me is a single player or co-op experience. And I think if they just focused on that, then everything that they could want to do, they could probably do a lot easier and a lot better, because that's all they have to focus on. They don't have to worry about doing these multiplayer maps and things like that. And then having mentioned maps, then I think overall the map itself needs to either be the same size or smaller than Ghost Recon Breakpoint, but that comes with a caveat. What they need to do, or what I'd like them to do, is fill it more. If the map is a bit smaller, but it's more full and there's more stuff to do and you're constantly feeling like you're under threat, that would be so much better to me than a huge map with so much empty space that it's just like, I'm a little bit bored to run around, I'm just going to fast travel. Get rid of the fast travel system and make it so that you want to go there, you've got to go there and fight through every single person that's going to be in your way. I don't know, maybe people like fast travel, but I feel like it takes away from the realism. I feel like there's ways you can do it. If you want to please both types of players, the more casual and then the more realistic, then have those two modes and have it so that they're built for their needs specifically. But the main thing about the map, there's nothing wrong with the Breakpoint map other than it's so big and not enough to do. But I'll say environments as well. Environments could change slightly. Breakpoint had its sort of grassy woodland areas and then snowy area and then a volcano area, which was added a bit later. That was cool. But it's all too samey. If you're making a fictional place, I'm pretty sure you could come up with somewhere that has these different landscapes and different types of environment within the same map. I don't know how the best way you could do it with the story, but I'm sure it could be done, and I'm sure it could be done in a way that doesn't feel like, oh, well, this is just a game. I can imagine coming out of the trees and then just seeing this desert horizon in front of you, and then maybe on the far end of the map you've got a snowy area, maybe a bit further on you've got a sort of wetland area. There is a wetland area in Breakpoint, but you get what I mean. Different areas, more diverse map, a bit more difference in it, so that you feel like, oh, this is a completely different environment. But then also along with that, I'm thinking of ideas as I'm riffing here. Let's say you go to that snowy area. Your stealth should be greatly increased. The AI should be much less likely to see you if you go into a snowy area and you're wearing all white. That should make a difference. It doesn't, and it's infuriating, but it should make a difference. Customization should mean something. You wear certain clothing because you're going to a certain place to do a certain mission, and then enemy AI has less chance of seeing you based on what you're wearing or the color of what you're wearing. It's a franchise that I really do enjoy, and I want to see it do well, and I cannot wait for the next installment. Anyway, let me know what you guys think, want anything really in the comments down below. Are you excited for the next Ghost Recon game? Did you enjoy the originals more than the new ones? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below and we'll have a little discussion about it. But if you enjoyed this video, you want to see more videos like this one, let me know as well. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. I'll do more videos on this as we know more information, but in the meantime, other games to play, other things to do. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.